What's up YouTube, I'm Twisted and Briar got revealed yesterday. In this video I'll be reacting to her cinematic, to her champion insights, to her bio, and to her voiceover. Unfortunately, Riot released all of this in the same day, so this video got way too long, so if you wanna skip to a particular part, feel free to do so.
Hi! Oh, you're escaping too?
My god, I really like this art style. It's a bit more stylized than what we usually see with like Fortiche and all of the other studios that Riot works with. But yeah, I'm really digging it.
Phew! Glad you know the layout. She's been fed! On your guard! Escape, buddy! That's my friend!
Oh,
And you're food!
holy shit. Okay, I love this. I love how stylized this is. I wasn't sold on the character, but they are selling me on the character with this animation. Okay, the League of Legends pings, nice. She's screaming, and I like Cyan. Oh, the POV, and
Wasn't that fun?
oh, her thing came back? Interesting. And so she regained, like, control? Huh, I'm sure that's gonna be related to her gameplay. Alright, that was a really cool cinematic. It doesn't give us much in terms of lore, it's just her, like, escaping the prison where she was, I assume. But it's really stylized, and I'm sure TV Skyen is going to enjoy dissecting it. So now let's read the champion's insights. Let's learn what Briar is all about. Thirsty for blood, hungry for life. Welcome to Noxus, the home of ruthless warlords, expansionists, dreams, and quite possibly your new best friend, at least if she added her way. Briar isn't your typical Noxian. While she might have an everlasting thirst for blood, she's also an insatiable hunger for something else. Life experience. Okay, this is something that we saw in the quotes in her teaser. She doesn't really understand like normal stuff like coins or cooking up food before eating it. Like she has probably been an experiment her whole life, right? A sanguine story. Most of the Noxians we know, looking at you, Swain and Cyan, want nothing more than to dominate their opponents. But killing things has always come easily to Briar. A little too easily. That's because she was made for it. Oh, so she was never a normal person? Briar was created from hemomancy. Oh, okay, so she's not even human. AKA blood magic. By the Black Rose to be a living weapon. She needs to consume blood to fuel herself. And boy oh boy, does she like blood. Okay, this is nothing like unexpected. The Grey Legion is related to blood magic, and thus related to Vlad, and Vlad has ties to the Black Rose, so all of this sorta makes sense. The Black Rose made her sentient so that she could understand and execute orders, but there was one flaw. In order to kill her targets, the Black Rose kept Brian in a frenzied state. She was in a perpetually bloodthirsty rage. In this state of mind, Bria's intelligence and vocabulary basically dwindled down to more blood. Okay, this is interesting, like as a contrast to Cyan, because if I'm remembering it correctly, when he's set free on the battlefield, he also has like lower intelligence and vocabulary, is basically just a killing machine, but as he kills more people, he starts regaining bit by bit a bit of his sanity. I might be misremembering, but I think that's the core of Cyan, an orthographic rendering of Briar in her frenzied state. Yikes, chill. She really only went out on 2 missions. Interesting. In her quotes from the teaser, she does mention being on the battlefield. So we knew that she had been on like at least one battle or one war, but now we got a confirmation it's two battles or two wars. Reveals narrative lead Max to Weevil's Folkman, and both times she failed by the Black Rose standards because she was uncontrollable. Okay, so classic Noxian, they made something, they can control it, and so they probably tried to lock it away. She actually killed too many other people, so Briar knows that she was a failed experiment. That's part of her burden now. She's redefining herself. Interesting. So she's well aware that she's an experiment, she's well aware that she was made to kill, and she's like, damn, they made me way too good, and now I'm being punished for it. Briar not only killed her targets, but anyone who stood in her path. For the calculated and discreet Black Rose, she proved to be more of a liability than an asset. Final art of the interior of the holding facility. Briar's cell is at the end of the hall. This is what we saw in the teaser, in the client. After Briar failed her first mission, the Black Rose put her in a pillory until they knew her next target. And after failing that mission, she was captured by Swain's forces and confined to a cell in a holding facility. Needless to say, the pillory stays on. Interesting, so this prison, which is likely the one we saw in the roadmap teaser, is actually not owned by the Grey Legion. It's owned by Swain's forces. But Cyan is also here. That's interesting. The device was locked by a hemolith, a gemstone with magical properties that helps restrain Briar and reinforce her mind. Oh, how convenient that such gemstone exists. The pillory was meant to be a permanent fixture after she was confined to her cell, but after some time, Briar figured out how to loosen the hemolith and unlock the restraint. Lucky for those around her, Briar enjoys the presence of mind that the pillory brings. Okay, interesting. So if she wants, she can transform into a more like berserk state, but she actually enjoys, being sane, I guess. Prior to being in the pillory, she was an autopilot with her sensations, especially with her hunger, explains narrative editor Ilan Kuleni Stimmel. Her violence was essentially created to be part of her experience, and after having that pillory put on her, she realized that this device was sort of cursing and a blessing. Yes, a cursing? You can quote me on that. Interesting that the Black Rose made her to be like this being that they could use, but was also like able to take orders, right? That's the whole point of her being not a human, but having a conscience, was that she could take orders. But they made her in such a way that her normal state of being is being in a frenzied state. I guess they really fucked up, because the one thing that they wanted was, okay, let's make this being with blood magic that can take orders. But then they made it so that she's just crazy all the time. On top of that, it was the Black Rose who put her in the pillory. So they're like, yeah, we made you not the way we wanted, so now we're gonna put this device on you so you can be more like the way we wanted. That's Noxus for you. The final 3D model for Briar's pillory with a hemolith gemstone in the center that holds the halves together for now. Okay, so this is the gemstone. She was no longer bound by her frenzy. Instead, she was bound by the pillory. She quickly learned to enjoy the mental clarity that restraint brought with it. With a combination of prison and pillory, Briar had time to reflect, but also to learn. She internalized her cell guard's conversations, chatted with other captives in holding, and studied the strange insects that crawled in her cell. Okay, so I think this is in line with all the quotes from the teaser. All of these outside influences revealed to her that there was so much more to be discovered. She was finally able to mellow out and start processing what it means to think and have thoughts. Her pillory brought to her a period of reflection and learning about identity and wanting an identity of her own. Briar already knew the identity she didn't want to have. She didn't want to be a mindless killing machine any longer. And she definitely didn't want to follow orders. Okay. Instead, Briar wanted to choose her own path, and she was eager to make up for lost time. She couldn't stay in the facility any longer. This is when we first encounter Briar, well, on her way to bigger and better, and bloodier, things. But more importantly, ready to experience the world. Right? So here's the cinematic. In her champion reveal, we meet an eager, bright-eyed Briar who becomes friends with the first person she sees, at least in her mind. Companionship and the occasional warm pint of blood are the motivations that keep Briar going, and they are also what brings her back from her frenzy. Okay, so this character that we see in the beginning is like the first person she sees after breaking out, so she kind of just assumes that they're her friend. Nowadays, she'll only break out of the device when she absolutely needs to, a blessing for her, but a cursing for her opponents. Overall, Briar was a balancing act to create. The team wanted to build Briar around the loss of control, but they still needed to preserve a sense of autonomy. They knew she should be a champion with flaws, but not a victim. Naive, but not childish. I'm not sure if they succeeded at this, because she sounds very naive and childish, and a victim. A woman, but not sexualized. Enthusiastic about life, but not annoying. Briar has all the confidence of a fresh college graduate with the same penchant for awkward humor. Are they saying that she's around her early 20s? Plus, she can shred you to pieces, and she's beginning to discover her power and place in Runeterra. I'm not sure how I feel about this whole paragraph. Okay, some cool thumbnails. Briar's personality starts to come through in early movement studies. Much of that power and personality was brought to life through her voice actor, Julie Nathanson. We felt so much better when we found Julie as our actor. She was so great for giving us different kinds of reads for every line. It was actually hard to choose sometimes which ones we should pick for the game. She helped us find the perfect balance with Briar's newfound personality and her frenzied state. The voiceover team collaborates closely with a North America voice actor to help inform how they finalize the character, both in writing and performance. That performance also serves to influence how other regions finalize the character around the world. Finally, being able to hear the clear delineation between the blood-crazed Briar and her restrained personality in Julie's performance was a big sigh of relief, and it lined up perfectly with her gameplay. It's giving sweet but deadly. Along with her backstory and some solid gameplay mechanics, a lot of careful thought went into Briar's visual representation in the game. Lead concept artist Kindlejack worked hard to insert the right balance of Briar's personality and gameplay into her look. We knew Briar was going to have a kind of dark side that would be let out when she chose to, explains Kindlejack. We needed to visually communicate this idea of game designs, the idea of holding back a powerful, monstrous nature, so we zeroed in on the concept of a physical restraint. And pretty early on, Lone Wingy actually did the first sketch of her in a pillory. We believed in that idea, she looked comfortable in a restraint, which immediately creates curiosity. Okay, interesting. Imprisoned vampire who can turn blood to bladed weapons, she cannot use her hands, so she shewed her ankles to create blood blade and uses her feet to fight. Interesting. I like this. This is really funny. Kindlejack took the idea of the pillory and ran with it. He added some thoughtful yet subtle shape language to the device to reflect the brutalist design themes of Noxus. The general design of her restraints has these sort of nails and spikes pointing into the middle toward her head, Kindlejack explains. I really wanted to create a visual design that communicated the metaphor of keeping her mind under control. It was sort of inspired by those diamond-tipped head braces that you get when you have neck surgery or something like that. They are literally drilled into your head, but for Briar, it's not quite as gruesome as all that. While Briar might come from slightly gruesome origins, she is by no means a dark, sad champion, and this is immediately recognizable when you look at her. Because she's a very complex character, oh yeah, very complex so far, for what we've seen, very complex. The way that I wanted to visually communicate her personality is thus. Her face and expressions show a lot of her eagerness and excitement, but her feet and stance communicate her hesitance and trepidation on entering the human world, and then her hands, restrained as the wrists, show her inner anger. Oh, okay. At first glance, these details might not be something that you picked up consciously, but on further study, it becomes clear that the position of her claw-like hands, pigeon-toed feet, and eccentric face are all working together to communicate the main beats of the character. Are they though? Because she just looks like a girl trying to look cute. But the visual metaphors didn't stop there. Kindlejack played with Bria's vampire inspiration in her eyes and even in her silhouette. For her eyes, I was referencing real-world medical photos of cataracts because I wanted her eyes to give you the sense of the full moon. Not really what I think about when I see a cataract, but sure. It's a vampiric thing, sure, but also the romance of the full moon is generally a gothic thing. So she's got these kind of milky white opaque eyes that look at you in the way the moon looks at us as it follows us home. Interesting. I thought her eyes were just, vampires are related to bats, and bats are known for being blind, even though they aren't really blind. So I thought that was what they were going for, but I guess it was actually cataracts and moons. It's kind of subtle, but with Bria's shape, I wanted to give her thicker legs and bottom half with a more petite upper body, Kindlejack adds. The idea here is that she's actually made from blood magic or living blood. She should be a little bit more bottom heavy, like an IV bag, or the shape of a droplet of blood. This is a weird way to justify her body type. Right? This is a weird way to justify her body type. I think they could have just not mentioned it at all. Twisted from the future here, I just want to say that personally I don't find her narrative nor her design bad per se. People at Riot are very talented, and I think the cinematic especially really did sell me more on the character. I do, however, find funny some of the justifications behind the decisions that were made for both narrative and design, especially this one. Wouldn't it make more sense to justify her body by explaining that she's essentially a golem? She's a construct, something man-made, and when you're constructing something, it makes more sense for the base to be the heaviest part. It creates stability so that the thing you're making doesn't fall over. I don't know, this paragraph is just really funny to me. A rendered portrait of Briar's full moon eyes and blood-stained hair. Oh, she doesn't look so scary. Even the ombre in her hair is a nod to the fact that Briar probably isn't the most tidy eater. No, when she feeds, her hair dangles down in the pool of blood surrounding her meal. So shouldn't it be like dark red instead and all crusty? But if we are going to be honest, it gives her a fresh look, just in time for fall. And it absolutely slays, literally. Okay. Briar is about unapologetically being yourself. She's not embarrassed or afraid of her nature, but she knows she can be more. She's a character for people who want to cut loose, go all in, and have a laugh while playing a game of League. Okay, being, if the theme is about her being herself, I think, these gothic and alternate themes and styles and clothing and even her hair being dyed make a lot of sense. There's just some weird things about choices like the body type, like the fact that this is supposed to be dyed with blood, but looks, pink. I don't know, it's like, I think the idea was, we want to make a cute character. Let's see how we can, justify that with, with narrative and gameplay. And, I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. If you're enjoying this video so far, consider subscribing. Please. Alright, so now let's finally check out her lore. This is her universe page. Her title is The Restrained Hunger, and related champions we got Cyan, makes sense. He's also an immomancy experiment. Swain, makes sense because she wasn't imprisoned by the Black Rose, she was imprisoned by Swain. Talon is interesting, I'm not sure why Talon is here. Vladimir also makes sense, he's the Hemomancer, right? But I'm not sure why Talon is here, let's try to find out. A failed experiment by the Black Rose, Briar's uncontrollable bloodlust required a special pillory to focus her frenzied mind. After years of confinement, this living weapon broke free from her restraints and unleashed herself in the world. Now she's controlled by no one, following only her hunger for knowledge and blood, and relishes the opportunities to let loose, even if reining back the frenzy isn't easy.
Near the end of his reign, Grand General Boredom Darkwill entrusted the Black Rose and its many hemomancers with creating a new kind of living weapon. Unlike their previous experiments on the disease, this would be a being born from and fueled by blood, one driven to hunt down targets without requiring the sustenance of food and water. Okay, so I can't really recall how long ago was the reign of Borom Darkwill. I'm sure I'll put it on the screen, but that probably gives us a time frame for how old Briar is in the world. Obviously, she isn't a person; she was man-made. So just like Gwen, her age doesn't really match her mental age per se, and so Briar was born. Her creators wanted an assassin, but all she wanted was to eat, eat, eat. When her first mission ended in a frenzied, gory failure, the Black Rose decided that Briar was too dangerous to use, but too powerful to be destroyed. In order to control her, they devised a special pillory locked by a Himolith gemstone to restrain her and focus her mind. Once shackled with the pillory, Briar, along with the rest of the Black Rose's living weapons, was quickly deployed during Jericho Swain's coup against Darkwill. Okay, so I assume that when they say deployed, they mean deployed against Swain and Swain was against Darkwill. Okay. She was given a handler to help direct her, but when released from her pillory, Briar immediately devoured him and everyone near her. Okay, that's funny. Everyone but her target, Swain, who escaped while the living weapon fed upon friend and foe. If LeBlanc got the W, that would be very weird, so of course Swain escaped. After an arduous capture, Swain's guards managed to trigger Briar's pillory and restore her restraint, enabling them to transfer her to their holding facility. Alone in her cell, Briar could focus on nothing except her hunger. Though she couldn't die from starvation, the absence of fresh blood weakened her day by day. At first, she thought the chorus of crazed wails echoing around her room were her own starving thoughts, until she realized the sounds were drifting in from unseen neighbors. Did Swain's forces manage to capture other living weapons during the coup? Was she locked up with them now, each having failed their mission? Their purpose? The voices cried out for blood, a sentiment Briar could relate to. But what she couldn't stand wasn't how often they did it, nor how loud they were, but that it was all they talked about. Their unrelenting emomania was the most boring thing she had ever experienced. Oh, okay. Interesting that they have a name for it, emomania. As hungry as Briar was, and she was hungry, her thoughts stayed focused on the pitiful sounds of the others. What if she managed to break out of the pillory? Would her frenzy make her even more unhinged than her neighbors? Would she become as single-minded and boring as them? The idea was too horrifying to dwell on, so she instead resigned herself to listless solitude. Interesting, so she does retain some sort of conscience during her frenzied state. At least, she remembers being in a frenzied state. Years passed, and the time alone allowed Briar to reflect on herself and consider the possibilities of the world outside her cell. Entertainment consisted of eavesdropping on the guards' conversations, devising new ways to pester them for a raw meat, and agonizing over whether she should raise her pet spiders to eat them. By chance, while she was toying with her pillory one day, she inadvertently loosened up the hemolith, which settled into a position just short of unlocking the restraint. Briar froze as thoughts of her emomaniacal neighbors filled her head. Is that what she'd become? But then she realized something. Being under control was just as dangerous as being out of control. She wanted to strike the balance. Having discovered the hemolith's mechanism, Briar devised a plan. By this point, the guards were so used to her calls for attention that when she lured one of them to the cell, nobody noticed that he was missing until it was too late. The guard's blood surged within her, lighting a fire that had been waiting to spread. Briar was finally free. Now the living weapon gleefully roams the streets of Noxus, pillory locked back in place, until she wants to unlock it. As she acclimates to the world outside, with the Black Rose monitoring the unexpected development, Briar eagerly learns all she can, making new friends and discoveries in a world she is starving to experience. Okay, so this is interesting. First of all, we don't see any of this in the cinematic, right? We just see what happened between her killing this guard and being freed. I'm assuming like the cinematic takes place right here. Another interesting thing is that the Black Rose is monitoring her, and that makes sense. The Rose has eyes everywhere, as the Swain, and maybe this was all part of their plan. We like to joke about how many failures LeBlanc has, and the Rose as a whole, but I like to think that maybe she's just playing 4D chess with Swain. They are both like multiple steps ahead. I don't know. The bio also mentions her making new friends. I wonder if that's why Talon is here, or if Talon is the member of the Black Rose that is monitoring her. I think that would be interesting. We know that from the ending of Katarina's comic that Talon and his adoptive father were tied to the Black Rose. We always knew that Katarina's mom was tied to the Black Rose, but then we also learned that Talon was also involved. And by the end of the comic, if I'm not mistaken, he is taken to Shurima, likely to be with his mother. So yeah, I wonder if her quotes are going to like shed some light on her connection with Talon. So let's check those out. As always, shout out to Skin Spotlights.
So, you want me to call you Vlad or Dad?
Oh, what? What the hell was this first quote? Skin Spotlights knew what he was doing. I mean, we don't know how involved Vladimir was with her creation. I assume this is just a reference to the fact that Vladimir is the main emomancer of Noxus, right?
Oh, Scion! You escaped too? And you're here with me.
Okay, so in her teaser, we can actually hear Cyan's voice, one of his League of Legends quotes, and she answers by saying something like, "Oh, you're not the only one who's hungry," or whatever. So that's how we knew that Cyan was also imprisoned in the same place as her, and she seems to not like him very much, which is funny.
We fight so differently, Scion. You're like, ugh, and I'm like, nom, 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 nom. You know?
Okay, she feels like a cartoon character. Like her quotes are so over the top, right?
Talon, is this a brand new super secret murder mission? Hey, Talon, what's the point of sneaking up on your target if they're gonna die either way?
Okay, so obviously their interactions in the game are not canon, they are more like what ifs, but I wonder if they have met, right? Because Talon was listed in her related champions, and now she has quotes where she seems to, talk to him in a kind of a casual manner as you would talk like with a friend. She definitely seems to know him. Again, champions knowing other champions in their interactions isn't really supposed to be taken seriously. Just because she knows him by name here, that doesn't mean that she knows him outside of the game. Hopefully, we'll get a call a story about them, but since Nafiri didn't get one, I don't really have high hopes for that.
I don't like you, Scion!
This is so funny. She has a one-sided beef with Cyan.
No blood for you, Scion!
Again.
Ooh, Talon, show me your blades! Not
Interesting. All of her interactions so far are with Talon and Cyan.
sharp enough, Talon! You smile in fear, Vlad!
Okay, by the tone of her voice, this seems to be her frenzied state, and it's interesting that she can still like talk. Like it isn't as like a berserk mode where she has no thoughts.
Let's compare fangs, Vlad!
And then this is way more like casual, like controlled Briar, right?
A family-sized meal? For me?
Okay, so she's going to have a couple quotes against jungle monsters because she's a jungler.
Oh no, Scion's dead? I am so sad. I'm lying.
My god, she sounds like a teenager who has this like arch nemesis that doesn't even know her.
Boring Scion tastes like leather! Traitor!
Oh my god.
Talon! You...
Traitorous. Oh, I wonder if like Talon befriended her and that's his way of keeping tabs on her. Interesting.
You chose this! Oh, Talon.
Obviously, this quote is because the Talon is on the enemy team and she killed him, right? That's why she's calling him a traitor. I don't think he betrayed her in universe. Unless...
Chose this! Oh, Talon. I'll save your blood so they can do the hemomancy thing. You...
Oh, she sounds kinda sad here. Like, damn, her friend died and the only thing she's ever known is emomancy. So it's like, okay, you died, so we can bring you back, right? That's kinda sad.
Thing. You've become lazy, blood! Ugh, that's what you use blood for? How the blood is mine! See these wax seals on my belt? Yeah, I earned all of them.
I have noticed the wax seals before. I'm not sure what they mean. You know, if somebody watching this video knows what that could mean, please let me know in the comments because I really don't know.
Killing's different now. Like food I can't swallow.
Well, there's not a lot of subtlety here. I mean, her whole thing is that she was made a weapon and now she wants to be a normal human, right? Not a super complex character. And yeah, obviously this is her starting to feel remorse.
Finally. I needed a break from the city. Don't care where I'm going, as long as I'm moving.
It's interesting, like her motivation isn't even to like get revenge on the Black Rose, but considering that we already have Rel, whose lore is not that different from Briar, she was also supposed to be a weapon of Noxus, but now she's, taking revenge on the Rose and on Noxus. So I'm glad they didn't create another vengeful character. I think that would step on the toes of Rel way too much.
Remember, you can choose. Don't need to cut loose right away. You can choose.
Again, there's no subtlety here. That's the character. That's her.
Choose. Let's see. Today I'm going to climb a tree, learn the Noxian anthem, kill my enemies, and make a baby laugh.
She sounds like Harley Quinn, right? I'm picking up on it now. She sounds, people have said that she kind of sounds like young Jinx from Arcane, but like the way that she's kind of pronouncing some words, she sounds like either like the modern movie adaptation of Harley Quinn or the version from, I think it's on HBO, which is interesting.
What were the principles of strength again? Look the enemy in the eyes, hit them before they hit you, and be the last one standing?
Okay, so this is actually one of her quotes in the teaser. For those who don't know, the principles of strength are the modern ideals of Noxus. They are strength, guile, and vision. And that's what she's referencing here.
One standing? When I cut loose, I feel, hear, and see everything. I can just be.
That's a bit of a weird quote, right? Because she wants to not cut loose, right? She wants to be her like controlled self. Maybe I'm misinterpreting this line.
Noxus doesn't care if you're different, just that you're strong. And I'm strong. Real strong.
Yeah, this is actually true. As long as you're contributing to the Empire, you are welcome there. Regardless of your species, regardless if you're a mage or not, your background, wherever, they don't care.
I might be a weapon, but now only I wield myself.
Again, she is not a very complex character, very in your face. What she says is what she means, very uninhibited, I guess.
Now that I think about it, fighters are honest, but it's the liars who start wars.
That's not something I would expect someone who was locked up for so long to like say, but okay. Okay, so this was all the lore so far that we have about Briar. I'm going to keep my hopes up and say that maybe she's getting a color story. I really hope so. I think it would really explain her ties with Talon. I think it would, give us more insight how she, behaves in the world, as opposed to just, being in Summoner's Rift and attacking raptors. In my video where I reacted to Vladimir's new design in Wild Rift, I mentioned how this new design was likely worked on at the same time as Briar. In this video, I also mentioned how the narrative teams at Riot have explored blood magic recently. First, we had Zolani in Legends of Runeterra, who seems to be the source of the Darkin's blood magic. In case you didn't know, Vladimir's immomancy powers came from a Darkin. We also got the Katarina comic where Katarina herself gains daggers empowered by blood magic. Then we got Vladimir's new design in Wild Rift, And finally, we got Briar in League of Legends. It's very likely that this relationship between Briar and Talon is a follow-up from the events of the Katarina comic. Overall, I think there's a place for her in the universe. It seems that her teams are sort of a mix between Rel and a character like Gwen or Lilia. She is a weapon made by the Black Rose. Rel wasn't made by the Black Rose, but she was forced into being a weapon by the Rose. And she's also a character that hasn't been alive for long. So she, wants to experience life and understand it in the same way that Gwen or Lilia does. Maybe more so Lilia than Gwen, because Gwen does seem to have, somewhat of an understanding of the world. Lilia doesn't really know much about the world outside of her garden, and that's kind of the same thing with Briar as well. I think the design is also alright, a bit of missed potential when it came to her more frenzied form, but I understand why they didn't want to make a separate model that usually makes it harder for the champion to get skins. We see that with Kayn, we saw that with Udyr as well. I think the justifications for her being cute and bottom heavy were hilarious. Nothing against the artist, but that was really funny. And yeah, this was Briar. I'm sorry this video is so long, but they decided to drop all the lore on the same day. So if you enjoyed this video, please let me know. And if I missed something, let me know down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video.